Hello and welcome back to another episode of One Kick from Glory. We had a plan today. We were going to complain about the one thing that has been a biggest bugbear for all of our lives. But instead, we get to talk about one of the smallest bugbears that actually now is great entertainment, but could be a problem in who comes in next. Of course, we're referring to the Audi TT, Mr. Thomas Tuchel, who got sacked by Todd Bowley earlier on today. And we're joined as always by Matthew.
Hey.
And we've got Markus here with us to talk all things the start of this brand new season. We're going to start off with this news of Todd Bowley's unfortunate or fortunate departure, depending on what side of the fence you sit on. I'll start with you, Matthew, because you found out when we dropped it in the group chat earlier on today. But what's your take on this whole news that's come out earlier?
Oh, well, nothing changes really, does it? Nothing changes. It's almost as if it worked for Roman, it's going to work for me. I'm upset about it because I said in the beginning that it might be a chance to be a bit more sustainable about how we do things. So I thought he would, get a little bit more time, maybe at least until halfway through the season after the World Cup to see where things go. He has bought essentially 6 or 7 new players. So it's going to take time to kind of weed out, to figure out what he has, and then eventually it will all come good. We already know we're not doing anything in the league. We're not going to even challenge for it, and it already looks like Champions League could potentially be a struggle. So let's at least, have that year of experimentation for the money that we spent, and then see how it comes out at the end. As long as we're in the top 4, I think we're going to be very pleased about that. But on one hand, I feel for him because towards the end of the year, after that, stuff came out with Lukaku and the sanction and the almost fact that we were almost on the brink of non-existence. He did manage to drag us to a 3rd place finish. And we got to 2 cup finals last year. We won, 4 cup finals, technically, if we're looking at it. It's the Club World Cup, Super Cup, Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. So that's 4 cup finals. He won 2 of them. That's where the problems start. Domestic, your bread and butter. He lost out there. Standards started to drop after the last international break. Certain games we shouldn't be losing. And all right, he's bought all these new players. We don't know what our team is. A lot of the players were being played out of position. And you look back at it and think, when you add all those things together, at the same time, I'm not happy about it, but I'm just not surprised by it, because it's just the kind of thing that I'm getting the kind of vibes when Mourinho last left. I'm getting those kind of vibes where the results started going really. It's a combination of the two. How he went away in 07-08 and 15-16. It's a combination of the two, because 07-08 it came out of nowhere. But also saying how the performances since, even from before the end of last season, started to dip. It's that certain players weren't singing from the hymn book. Certain players wanted to leave. Some did, some didn't. And certain players just getting played far too many times. So it's just a combination of so many things that have led towards his dismissal. Not all of it's his fault. It would have been nice to see him get a little bit longer. Again, because I want to try and get out of this kind of constant shuffling and changing of managers, because it's expensive on top of the 250 million we've already spent. And I think at one point he was looking at a contract extension for them to be then chucked out. So I'm disappointed. The TT's been left no wheels, sitting on bricks. It's not rolling no more. I know it's just, or if someone else wants it, take it. We'll just lost out a whole bunch of money. But it's disappointing. It's disappointing. I thought the circus had stopped, but same circus, different management.
Well, some things never change, and I'm glad you guys are very consistent with or without Roman. I want to jump over to you, Marcus, just about this issue, because I have a few things I want to bring up as well, but I just wanted to get your perspective on what's happened and what's your take on this decision. Do you agree with it? Do you think it's premature? Or are you, like me, just happy to see another one of the rivals make have a potentially, slippery position?
Yeah, look, I think it's madness, really, when you think about it. Chelsea spent £250 million and clearly with some ambition to sign Thomas Tuchel type players. So, Aubameyang, for example, was clearly a Tuchel signing, deadline day, someone who he wanted, someone who he's really enjoyed, having before, and looking forward to come back and teaming up with. And you just have to look at the decision and think, although you kind of saw it coming, you probably could have given it, up until the international break, even maybe a little longer, and kind of seen how it played out. We all know Chelsea have had a bad start, and that they expect better, but nonetheless, I think for me, I think it's a strange decision. Considering the nature of the signings and the way that they were looking to move forward, and what Chelsea have done only in the last year and a half under Tuchel, I think he probably deserves some more grace. But nonetheless, as a Liverpool fan, you do have to look at it and think, okay, well, Chelsea are probably not going to be, in the rivalry and in the competition this year. So fair enough. We've had a bad start too. So I'll take any other of the top six having bad starts just to help us out along the way.
Yeah, I think my only concern with that is who they bring in next. Because obviously they've been given permission by Brighton to speak to Graham Potter. That's the one manager that, and again, it could work in one of two ways, right? Graham Potter has never had a massive team to manage. We've seen with Rodgers when he got that job at Liverpool, didn't quite get it over the line, but there was enough shoots to show the potential of what was possible. Obviously, your massive upgrade to Klopp kind of bore that to fruition. I'm not comparing Klopp and Rodgers because that again is like comparing a Rolls Royce to a banged out Mini. It's just like, what's the point? But I think it can show you the benefit of moving to a manager that's got a lot of a good reputation, is highly rated, giving him a top job, how it can bear dividends. However, that being said, there's a lot about this sacking that I think we should get into a bit more. There's been a lot of talk. I know Matt Law, journalist, who has a lot of good connections into Chelsea. A lot of Chelsea fans don't like him because sometimes he says stuff which they think isn't true. In fact, he was the first one that started to indicate that there were some issues in the camp, that some of the players weren't really happy with Thomas Tuchel. Some of them weren't happy with the tactical decision making that was being done. Some of the decisions around the formation, how they want to play. There's even like an amazing article in the Telegraph today talking about the sacking, and there's a nice little section here that basically says that a lot of the players were frustrated with team selections, the surprises, players being left out, people being played in different positions. So he kind of, I think he lost, obviously, the dressing room. He himself wasn't happy with this responsibility he had this summer in terms of what his impact and his input over transfers. He wanted to have less of a role. The previous system was better for him. Petr Cech being let go, he wasn't happy with. One of the big fallouts between him and Todd Boehly was over Ronaldo. Todd Boehly wanted to sign Cristiano Ronaldo this summer. Thomas Tuchel said no. Todd Boehly then wanted to understand why. Thomas Tuchel didn't feel like he needed to justify why he didn't want that striker to mess up what they had planned. So there was already tension and friction. And in fact, I think one of the things that I saw today was that Todd Boehly and his team, they want a manager that they can collaborate with. I feel like their ideas will be listened to. And Tuchel is very clear as to how he wants to play football and what he wanted to have. And talking about the football, for me, and I've said this before in the previous podcast, I haven't seen the real Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea. I know you won the Champions League. I know you won the Club World Cup. I know you've done really well from a success perspective, but the football has been a bit lacking. For you, Matthew, looking back on his era, do you feel like he could have done more, or are you happy with what he did for you, all things considered?
I've always said that I felt like he's hit fifth, fifth gear. I just felt that six was just it never really reached that sixth gear that he could have got, or dare I say, should have got. He should have got to that sixth gear with all the players that he has. He's done it at PSG, he's done it at Dortmund, goals galore, and exciting forward play. But when he got to us, kind of unpacking a lot of what was unlearned from even time at Jose Mourinho. A lot of players have been there since Mourinho. It's almost as if they felt like that was a default. A lot of the players were used to playing that kind of way if things went wrong. And it showed in the games that we've lost. Look at all the games we've started this year. Again, all the 6 games in the league and last night. We start off good. And, if a goal comes from it, great. But what happens is, if they score or if we're not feeling it, we just go into default. We go into limp home mode. It's properly safety mode where with players like Ziyech, with players like Havertz, with players like even if players like Havertz and Mount out of position, there's still something that can be had to keep on chucking the ball forward. I respect with all the money you're getting, you're out of position, but I'm sorry, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. You're there to kind of to be creative, try something new, try something different. You're footballers, for crying out loud. Some of these things you've learned in the park or on the street. So, get it together. I don't buy that. But going back to what I was saying before, it's like there was no initiative to kind of try something a little bit different. Lukaku is a big one. As much as I don't feel we're playing to his strengths, there is something that could be done. If you look at Haaland, see what he's doing. He got I saw something where it compared the goals after how many games, how many goals each player's got. Haaland's flying. And he scored again last night. And he's probably going to score again the next game. Let's be real. But that comes from that kind of, taking charge, that initiative, that kind of assertiveness. That's all we kind of lack, and I hope we get from Aubameyang.
But also, I think the other big difference is that Man City have a very settled, stable, and happy way of playing. I know players like Jack Grealish aren't really fully expressing themselves, but there's a way of playing which works for them. I think you guys haven't really quite figured out what type of a team you are. Even the fact that in midfield, there's this debate over should Kante play, should Gallagher play, should Jorginho play, like the fact that you don't have a settled system and a settled 11, I think is a bigger part of the problem as well.
Because of lack of a striker. For a long time, there was also a lack of a striker. And with that midfield debate, you can play them.
But you had a striker last season.
Yeah, and so you tuck his tail in Christmas, and that didn't work.
I'm sorry, you had no. We can't let them gonna pull up on that. But you had Lukaku.
Yeah,
he did it. He does exist. He was your striker. He still is your striker.
Technically is, but yeah, he decided Christmas time. I don't know, we had some like nice turkey or something, or some mince pie or spiked or something. And the son decided something Italian. I don't know. Going with the boy, he's off in Italy. Long may he stay. That was his fault. That was his own personal fault. But yeah, I get what you mean. How I look at the formations for before the games start, and I'm thinking that was different from before. Yet the same players are kind of still there. I do want to say this though, is that I feel like it's a case of player power doing its thing again, which is never a good thing to see.
Yeah,
never a good thing to see. And certain individuals, I'm not going to necessarily pick them out, but I think they have had a certain thing to say.
Dig them out. We want names.
Certain ones that kind of stunk him out. They weren't performing lately. I think Havertz and Mount, they've kind of stunk him out. Mendy's lately stunk him out. Ziyech is thinking out because he wants to go. Pulisic is thinking out because he wants to go. Hudson-Odoi, he went. Werner, he went.
We can't say Hudson-Odoi did. I can't even say he stunk the place out.
We got rid of him.
No, but for me, with Hudson-Odoi, it's not even like he stunk the place out. You know when like you're okay. You know when you're expecting like a really big burp to come out, yeah, and then like you're bracing yourself for it, and like barely a sound comes out. That's Hudson-Odoi, but continue.
Well, because he was loaned and not sold. Rudiger, one of the best examples of a guy who should have stayed. We should have got on our knees for him to stay, and he's off doing the business in Real Madrid. I can go on. Marcus Alonso, thank God he's gone. Christensen, AC Penitentiary was shut down last year. I don't know what went wrong. And then what was the other one? Dave, good old Dave, Azpilicueta. Rose-tinted set of spectacles off, probably said he shouldn't be playing that much anymore. I don't think he should be. I mean, yeah, I think player power has definitely done its thing, but I think he got his favourites. They always play. They're never shown. And even when they don't play, well, at least when they don't start, likes of Havertz, scored against West Ham, not starting. I think he started last night, and look where that went. Actually, you know what? Shout out to Zagreb. Because I didn't show him that much of respect when I saw, because I was out at the time. I saw the highlights tonight. You know what? They did the basics. They weren't even amazing. All they did was, playing Chelsea ain't that hard nowadays. Just do the fundamentals and we crumble.
They played well against you.
They did.
But, I want to ask you this question, Marcus, before we go on to the next topic, because we could sit on Chelsea all day, but frankly, I'm just glad that another club is going through turmoil. After everyone laughed at my club for first 3 games of last season, well, you ain't laughing now, are you? Unless you're United. But what do you feel like there were warning signs to the issues at the club at Chelsea last season? And how do you feel like the back end of last season and the start to this season have contributed to this ending?
Yeah, look, I think Chelsea Chelsea have had problems since Roman Abramovich decided to, become buddy with Vladimir Putin, and everything went downhill from there for Chelsea. I think, and I think Chelsea have had underlying problems since then, and new owners, and obviously these new owners have some clear idea of the types of players that they want to sign, which I think is positive because there is a profile. Like Chelsea are building forward in a certain way that I do wonder, when they look at approaching the likes of Graham Potter, if he fits the bill as quite a structured long-term manager that can take these young, hungry English players. You could, Mason Mount, Raheem Sterling,
Reece James,
Chilwell, Fofana, Chilwell, Gallagher. Like there's a real good solid base. But the thing that's strikingly surprising about it is Chelsea have never built this way before. So if they are to hire Potter, are they going to give him time? Are they going to allow him to bed in and build a system over a long period of time? This doesn't strike me as an overly Chelsea thing to do, which makes me more think that the better call is to go and hire Zidane or go and try and hire Pochettino and go for a manager that's already established, that's not going to necessarily worry about the style and the way you want to move forward. But I do wonder if Chelsea are looking to do something new, to do something different. And if they are, do they have the patience to see that through? But I do think it's been clear for a little while that Tuchel has seemingly lost the dressing room. The results have not helped him, and the new owners have clearly decided that they want something different and have decided that significantly early into their tenure. But what's been then surprising about that is some of the decisions then made, like Aubameyang and like everything that happened around Ronaldo. If this was the conclusion that they'd already decided, why not forget Aubameyang on deadline day and go into the season with what you have, considering the fact that a week later, you're firing a manager. So they clearly had already had this in mind long before Zagreb, because apparently there was that 100-day period in which they decided that they was going to be assessing things.
So very American.
Yeah, no, very much so. But look, I think the writing has been on the wall a little bit for Chelsea. But at the same time, let's see how they move forward. I think it'll be interesting. Are they going to do something new? And if they are they going to have patience for that something new? And I think they're the big questions that are ahead for Chelsea and that are ahead for Matthew in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, I think the most interesting statistic, obviously this is 100 games for Thomas Tuchel. There was a Chelsea fan that said 100 down, 101 next, and many more to go, and obviously didn't reach 101. But you look at the first 50 games, you kept 31 clean sheets in his first 50 games in charge. His last 50 games in charge, you kept 18. You went from conceding 24 goals to 53.
Owie.
I think therein lies the problem. Now, you won more games. No, you drew more games. But clearly, the defensive solidity, that which what defined his way of playing and managing, went out the window. And obviously, if there were issues with the ownership and when you lose dressing room and lose key players, it's very hard to keep your job. And I think we've seen that time and time again. Like you said, player power is a concern. And I think if Potter is given the job, and I think Markus, you make a great point about going for an experienced manager, because if the players turn around and see Graham Potter's hired, and if you're Billy Big Bollocks and you feel like, hold on a minute, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Why are we hiring the Brighton guy? He ain't nobody. I ain't going to respect him. What's Bowley going to do then? Will he bow to pressure, or will he kick out those players? People laughed at trust the process, but all I can say is a certain number 10 got sacked from his dream club. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. Sacked from his dream childhood club, had to go rebuild his career in another club. All right? That's all. Trust the process.
Talking about trust the process, I think that, if I'm in Chelsea's situation, if this is any other club, I'm going for Graham Potter. He is potentially a world-class manager. He has done a terrific job at Brighton, establishing success over a number of years. You could maybe ask the better question, why would Graham Potter want to go to Chelsea?
Ooh.
Because fundamentally, Graham Potter would be fired within 6 months of bad results. I I don't understand personally the move unless they present it to him in this appealing project way, offer him a long contract. But it would be very, very new for Chelsea. And Potter rejected Spurs back in the time when Spurs tried to hire 400 managers in one weekend, and rightly so. I think for the reasons of the fact that he felt as though if he moved to Spurs, it wouldn't be something in which he'd get the time that he needed to build and establish. And how's that any different to Chelsea? The Chelsea dressing room is probably far more toxic, much more player power going on there. I'm not sure that I'd make the move if I was Graham Potter, but if I'm Chelsea, Graham Potter would be my number one target based on the potential moving forward.
You know what? You make a good point there. I think for you, Matthew, like, obviously, this will be like our last point, and we'll move on to something else. But like, just thinking of the realities of it, right? Graham Potter's the one they've approached. The other list of names they had was Pochettino. You had Zinedine Zidane.
I heard Thomas.
Some people were saying
Thomas Frank.
I didn't hear him, but that's interesting. Some people were even saying Luis Enrique, a manager to wait for. I say, Jose, one last dance. Let's have it. Let's have it. Third time's a charm, surely. One more time in the Premier League. Fourth time out, But for you, who would if Potter is the manager that comes in, how would you want the club to approach it? And if you don't go for Potter, who would be your other preferred choice?
Oh, if they went for Potter, which I'm very kind of the more I hear it and more I talk about it, I really like it, because another great point on it is that he's overperformed with the squad that he's had. He hasn't had buckets of money. Players come in, players come out. They lost the Cucurella's just gone over time. They've recently lost Mope as well. And, which the one problem they had was the football they play is great, but one thing is they're lacking goals. But they don't seem again. It doesn't need to be bothering them right now. And the football's great, and great to see entertaining football again. Maybe that sixth gear could be reached with those players. This is what I said before, again, towards the end of last season when Bowley first came in, is that there has to be a slight change of the culture, like Markus said. Gone are the ways of just simply firing managers after a few bad results. I get, Tuchel spent the money, but at the same time, there was always friction there. There was always disagreements there with the whole Ronaldo thing, which I thought was a bit strange. I would have welcomed it, because he did quite well, but it was weird nonetheless. But let's go like a new direction. Let's start giving these people time. Let's be more sustainable. If it takes, Liverpool didn't get there straight away with Klopp. You didn't get there straight away with Arteta. It's only just starting to.
Let's not put Arsenal into this debate. Yeah, we're a special case. Carry on.
But for the first time in a long time, everyone seems to be on board. Yes, you had the setback, but people are on board. And I think that's what we're missing right now. We need for everyone to be singing the same sort of thing, so that if he does come in, just to realise it's not going to click straight away. Then we need to learn a bit more about a patient sort of thing, and how. But it's a very hard thing to unlearn after 20 years of instant success. You never know. If we stick to it and it goes well, this could breed even more further and better success. Purely for the quality of football. And let's be real, the man knows how to work a bargain, and he's seasoned. Has obviously had time at Brighton and Swansea, and I think he bought Ostersunds from Sweden. I think he got them 3 promotions back to back, and got them into the Europa League knockouts about 4 years ago. So he knows about, as far as building goes, he's well aware of the risk he's at. But at a club like Chelsea, which is probably going to be his biggest opportunity to date, he must be excited by the prospect of that. But I also get what Mark is saying, is that, do we deserve him? What can we do? What can we provide him? So he's probably my number one choice. If not him, we could go down the status quo of what we used to. I think Zidane is a good shot, but he'll want more money. He'll want more money that I think. And again, he wants someone he wants to collaborate with. Zidane's not the most cooperative person, if we're being honest.
Well, I mean, if you, so I would guess with Zidane, he did demand what he wanted from Florentino Perez, but he could justify it based on what he'd done in his career. I think what's interesting just in this whole debate about or discussion around Graham Potter is that didn't you sell Billy Gilmore to Brighton?
We did sell Billy.
So you sold Frank Lampard's favourite son to Brighton, then you bring in the manager from there. How ironic. But
weird.
Frank, I mean, why not consider Frank to come? I'm joking.
No. He can stay in Merseyside. He can stay in Merseyside.
Yeah, I think he might feel like he should be in with a shout for this job.
Why?
But, I know. I think it'd be a good shout. But before we get onto our massive topic for this podcast, obviously this was quite fun to talk about Chelsea's dismissal of Thomas Tuchel. Let's talk about Liverpool because there's a lot to say. One of my work colleagues, Mo, he was we always talk about football stuff. Shout out to you, Mo. Big up, Mo. He's gonna come on the podcast soon. Share his views on that. But we were talking about your team, because obviously the result against Everton, 0-0, and here's the biggest problem for Liverpool this season. Every game you don't score, every win you don't claim, every performance where it feels like you're just missing that little bit extra, everyone's going to say the same thing for the whole year. Well, if Sadio was there, I mean on Saturday, if Sadio was there, it just feels like it's such a redundant talking point. Because I think it's a point you made really well, is that there were games last season when Sadio played and didn't make a difference. And there have been games like that where he hasn't made a difference. However, because of the decisions made by the club and some of the deficiencies in your squad, that question will come up. But I want to start with you, Markus. Like, how do you feel about this start to the season? And what are your main kind of thoughts and concerns right now?
Yeah, well, let's give you a live update. Liverpool are 1-0 down to Napoli after 28 minutes here. I have it on in the background, and obviously I'm not watching fully, but Napoli have had 2 penalties and hit the post in the first 30 minutes.
Wait, they had 2 penalties? They scored one of them?
Yeah, scored one, missed the other.
Who gave away the penalties?
Gomez and Milner. Handball by Milner, and then a foul on Osherman by Gomez. But the case in point is that Liverpool are not playing very well as it currently stands. Liverpool have not really played very well all season, except Bournemouth, in which we ran and scored a lot of goals and won 9-0. And I think it was harsh that Scott Parker got fired after that game, but what can you do? So yeah, I think that there are some major concerns at Liverpool this season in terms of the way that they're performing. Salah doesn't seem to be finding the right positions. He seems to be staying out wide, and I wonder if that's consequence of signing more of a target man. But he just doesn't seem to be getting into the right spots and the same spots that he would be cutting into with them diagonal runs in from the right hand side.
Do you think that is down to a change in instruction for the manager, or do you think that's just a player not adapting to a different player in the system?
No, plausibly, it could be that you see the Fulham game. There was the goal where the ball was played in behind, and Salah could have ran in and took the ball in and had a shot on his left foot, which he would have done all season. Instead, he took the ball on his right foot, got down the line, crossed it in, and Darwin Núñez scored. Now, is that instinctively good play? Salah gets an assist, Núñez scores. Yes, could be the case. Could be instinctively good play, but it's also a change in process. I'm not in the dressing room. I don't know whether Jurgen Klopp's told Salah he needs to stay out wide or not. But what I do know is that is what's happening. And the whole Mane point is absolutely redundant because, at the end of the day, we've not had Thiago all season. We've been without Fabinho a handful of games. We've not had 2 of our second and third choice centre backs with Konate and Matip out for the majority of the season. So there are so many factors at play. Do Liverpool miss Sadio Mane? In some senses, of course, but it's not really the complete story, and to me seems like a cheap argument to make for why Liverpool aren't doing as well this season as they did the seasons before. But I think the reality is, and this was an interesting point that I made when having this conversation with a friend a couple of days ago, is that last season Liverpool finished on 92 points and they reached the Champions League final and they won the FA Cup and they won the League Cup. They finished on 92 points without beating one of the top six. So we drew all our games against the other top five teams in the league. So Liverpool have had a bad start to the season. They've lost to Man United, they dropped points at Fulham, and they dropped points at Everton this week. But if Liverpool beat two of the top teams, Liverpool have literally back on the same path track as they would have been last season. So I'm not that concerned in the grand scheme of things. Things just need to start to click and gel and come together. Another thing to factor in here is, whilst it would be nice to win the league, get to the Champions League final and win the FA Cup and League Cup every year, Liverpool can't expect that, I don't think.
Why not?
So, because teams go through transitions, and we've signed a new £70 million striker. We've finally kind of seen the breakup of our front three, and we have to bed in a new midfield. So I don't think it could be expected, directly, that this team go on and win the league, the Champions League, and the FA Cup and League Cup every year. Now, I say that now. In 3 or 4 months, Liverpool could well be still in contention for all of these things. We must remember that, was it January when Liverpool was 14 points behind Man City, and everybody says the title is over, and we still are in the title race on the final day of the season. It's a long season with a big, with a World Cup in the middle of it. But things just look a little predictable at the moment. Case in point, Liverpool are now 2-0 down to Napoli. So I think things just look a little predictable, and they look a lot easier to beat than they have in past seasons, which does make me a little concerned, especially when you consider how good Man City look.
Yeah, I think those are some really good points to raise. I also wonder if, because you have a strategy in how you go about things. I know Klopp made a very good point about the signings that you wanted to make going into the season. He said, sometimes a player chooses a different club. Everyone was kind of speculating as to who that was about. Obviously, it's Tchouaméni, who's gone off to Real Madrid. He doesn't really look like he's taken a while to adjust to their way of playing, so he doesn't really look that great at the moment. But midfield is a problem. I know you've mentioned some of the defenders you've had injured, but you've kind of been there before. I don't think anyone expected Konate to be injured, to get an injury. I don't think anyone expected Matip to be injured again. But midfield is a serious problem. Naby Keita, injury prone / not trusted even when he is fit. James Milner, this is comments on my colleague Mo, so I'm just going to read them out for you, Mo, on your behalf. James Milner, old and losing his legs. Curtis Jones just isn't ready, hasn't developed to the standard at which since when you brought him. And last but not least, my personal favourite, Alex Oxlade. Transfer window, I'm off injured. Chamberlain. He'll probably be back fit in a couple of weeks, just when it's time for, you just haven't really got a strong enough midfield quality. On top of that, you've got Thiago, who we know has his own injury problems, which is weird, because I don't know if he was ever like that in his previous club, but definitely since he's come to Liverpool, it's not been able to kind of string together enough games because he's so good.
This has always been Thiago.
Yeah.
This has always been Thiago. His career is such a disappointment in the fact that he would be one of the world's best ever midfielders if he could stay fit for more than 30 games in a season. He is an absolute talent, and when he's playing, he changes the game. He makes it tick. His ability to control the tempo, dictate the pace, pick out the passes, go from fast to slow is exceptional on a level like no other.
But on that point, what I was going to say is that, do you feel that the mistake the club have made is not adequately strengthening? I know everyone has their first choice and second choice and third choice. I know for Arsenal, we screwed up this window because Arteta was very clear. He wanted the squad of 25. We have a squad of 23. The two positions that we didn't get was a winger and a midfielder. One of them would have been a nice option to potentially bench Xhaka. We didn't, and now we needed the essential cover for Partey and El Neni, but obviously that's not happened. Do you feel like the club should have done more to get that target in, considering the injuries you currently have?
I don't. I don't. And this is where I'm going to be controversial, but I think that it's clear. I said this a handful of podcasts ago when we was talking about transfer targets. I think it's clear Liverpool want Jude Bellingham. I think it was very clear Dortmund weren't selling Jude Bellingham in the same window that they lost Erling Haaland, and I think that Liverpool are waiting, and I think that's sometimes what you have to do. We brought in Artemello on loan from Juventus, who, I don't know when he gets up to speed whether or not he's going to do anything, but he's an extra addition in midfield. And you would think if Fabinho's fit, Thiago's fit, and Artemello in midfield, or Henderson in midfield, when he's fit, that midfield is still good enough. It's just the problem is none of them are seemingly reliable enough, bar Fabinho, long term, to last you a full season. So it's going to be a mixture of them players. But I don't fault Liverpool if they think Jude Bellingham's the target they want, and I do. I think that waiting to get him next summer is the best thing to do.
All right. What's your take on that, Matthew? Would you? I mean, obviously, you guys have had a bit of a mixed window. You splashed the cash, maybe not necessarily in the right areas, striker. But what do you think about that position in terms of like signings and what Liverpool could and what they haven't done and what they probably could have done differently?
I think they're going to click on. I think this is just something that they're going to have to work out with, especially like we said in the midfield where it's absolutely lacking with the talent that they have provided. It's only a matter of time before, they will get better. Not to sound like one of those fans, it has only been 6 or 7 games. And I know, you don't... I mean, at one point now, Brighton, let's go to the example. Brighton are somewhere, the top 5 and the top 6. And it was only a couple of weeks ago that Leeds were 3rd. And now they've slowly sunk back down to the table after a couple of losses. So, plus the whole World Cup is a good incentive for players to try and get back and get fit. Or take the time to recover for them to come back in December to go on and kick on the season again. Because that's when, some players at some certain age, if you're not selected, is club or the country. However, that being said, if it's, let's say it's late October, and it's still in this kind of situation, you might have to wonder whether, how committed are they to this whole Bellingham signing? Are they willing to get to let the midfield just completely and utterly just, fall apart with so many holes. So much talent in there, let's be real, so much talent, especially when Naby Keita came in, who loves scoring against Chelsea, by the way. So if he stays away, he loves scoring, and it's always a good goal. That's so annoying. Thiago, when he came in, I remember when he first came in and played after we made all those signings, I think it was like in August, and Thiago just took the absolute piss out of our midfield. Absolutely dominated, and they won. Mm-hmm. Jordan Henderson, you didn't mention him, but he likes scoring against Chelsea as well. It's not personal, but these are just things that I've noticed. All your midfielders just like scoring against us. Oxlade-Chamberlain, we were meant to get him, then you got him, but in the long run, that was probably the better. And you know what?
I guess it's such a shame. So sad he didn't end up at Chelsea.
So close. I remember because we were in Portugal when it happened. Yeah. So close. And then the next day he's gone to Liverpool. And I'm like,
And I'm grateful to both of you for creating a market for an overhyped, anyway, prima donna. But anyway, over to you.
And I want to touch on another player, but someone at work was telling me this, and I had to watch him a few times to realise that, he wasn't talking rubbish. He was telling the truth, and just how underrated Joel Matip actually is.
Yeah, he's a baller.
He's a baller. I had to watch. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even. I wanted to sit back and I've watched him. I paid attention. This is what happens when I was looking at just stats all the time. I fell into that trap where you only look at really the number. I know it's a mistake. You go down the hole, but
hold on. We're 90s babies. We don't do that.
We don't.
Eye test only. Stats, you can be the younger ones. Carry on.
And the eye test was Matip. And I saw him because he scored that goal against us in the Carabao Cup final that got chalked off. He's an underrated Donny. I'm not even going to lie. So, Marcus, like you said, I think get them back. You're going to be fine. And just remind Darwin, this is the Premier League. That behaviour ain't going to go on right here. I think he found that out.
You see, this is also another thing to bear in mind, right? Darwin has spent 3 games suspended for his pathetic antics against Palace. But that's also 3 games without your new £70 million signing. And he looks good. After the Community Shield, where he got a goal and assist and played Man City off the park, everybody was like, this boy looks good. And then he comes in and scores against Fulham off the bench after 10 minutes into the second half, and everybody's like, oh, this boy looks really good. And then the Palace game, obviously, it didn't go very well. And, he's had to sit on the bench and suck it up and deal with, the consequences of his mistakes. But none of that's changed. I think he has the potential to be a very, very good striker. And We'll see where we are at the end of the season, Clive, on that one. But
Yeah, we will.
But yeah,
We definitely will. I mean, that was we've got a friendly wager going. The loser has to buy the number 9 of their opponent's team. Basically, if I lose, I got to buy Markus a Nunez shirt, and if I win, he has to buy me Jesus. The wager is who will score the most goals in the league. We did say league, right? We didn't say overall. Yeah, let's keep it to league, because otherwise it could get a bit techie, because my striker's not touching Europe for a while. So but yeah, I think that's a good point, man. I think it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. Obviously, Liverpool have a strategy. My only thing is, and I really think this is the biggest factor in all this, because it's a World Cup year and because of the way how the fixtures are congested between now and the cut-off point in November, I believe. Like everyone, it's like 3 games a week. I was even looking at some of the fixtures that people have to play, and it's like your problem, I think, Liverpool, is that because you're now playing catch-up, to a lesser extent Chelsea, but because you're playing catch-up to what's going on ahead of you, you might want to push your players harder to get results. And the problem with that is when you've already got a squad that's, out of form, got a few injuries, you might risk aggravating some if players come back early, or you might actually push some players to get injured because you're trying to get them up to speed. So that's probably the biggest concern, is like, can Klopp manage the squad to get the performances right? And like you said, Nunes being out for a few games has kind of cost you with having that focal point, and also the style he wants to implement with him there, and how will that all play out. But before we get to the weekend result, which I have a bit of humble pie to admit to, we're going to actually talk about the main topic for today. VAR, what a bloody bad romance. I am sick to death of this piece of system that we call VAR. Video assistant referee. The key is in the word assistant. You are meant to help. It is not your job to decide what goes on a pitch. You assist. That would be like going in a kitchen. The chef is telling the sous chef what to do. Sous chef's like, bro, hold on a second. This is what we're going to make. He said, no, it don't run like that. But for some weird reason, some bizarre reason in the Premier League, we're allowing the assistant referee to assist the referee and intervene in their decision making. And there have been far too many games this weekend. I'm not just talking about the Arsenal game, but that is one of them. Far too many games where legitimate goals have been chalked off by some poorly qualified, rubbish referee that wasn't good enough to be a referee, who's been given another job, and they can't do that properly. And I want to start with you, Matthew. Like, how do you feel about VAR, and when do we get rid of it?
I'm embarrassed at the moment, because you look around the world, even in other sports, they seem to be nailing it and get it right. They can do it in cricket, they can do it in tennis, they got it nailed in rugby, especially with the fact they have to respect how they respect the referee, how they treat the referee. Rugby have it down for years. It just seems to be not just football, but it's the Premier League, but just can't seem to get it right. And the worst thing is that we've seen it work in previous competitions, but this weekend, my game included. We can talk about the Spurs game for the hair pull and the foul. I got a call in this game as well. When I look back on it, I'm thinking, if I were a West Ham fan, I'd be fuming. I'm not even going to lie, because it was directly to a goal. I mean, what part of a foul was there? Okay, what, his knee hitting? I call that an occupational hazard. It was a risk. It's one of those things you'll take in a contact sport. But just so many clangers. As for getting rid of it, I think it's going to be a case of, it's here now, and I don't know, forget about getting rid of it, because we've seen that it works. I just think it's a case of, unfortunately, when it comes to our referees in the Premier League, our British standard referees, and then you say that Hal Webb's coming back as well, which is going to make things great. It's the human element. It's the assistant referee part. The video bit's fine, because we can all see it. I think it's the human element. There's too many mistakes. But and the rule changes just seems to have confused them to a point that they're deeming a physical hair pull in the penalty box as not being a foul.
I've got to add this. Here's my biggest issue, and I'm going to come to you, Marcus, about this as well. What I don't like is, after the game, they come out and admit they made a mistake, but they will not change the result or add the goals on that they chalked off. Like, what's the point? Why are you admitting you made a mistake? Why are you? Why? That's like, one of our former prime ministers coming out and admitting that he was a crook, or she was a crook, or they were a crook. I could be talking about all three of them. You never know. What difference does it make? Are you going to help us now? No. That's like our former chancellor coming out and admitting that he messed up and cost us all billions of pounds. What's the point? Where's the money? Anyway, But
Yeah,
yeah,
like Clive, I think at this stage, like when you have so much working for you, the facts are the facts. You should not be making three shocking mistakes in one weekend. Like they have all the time in the world to assess these, these videos to make sure they come to the right conclusions, and yet they're not. Like, and beyond that, I think what's worse is that it's got to a place now where VAR is becoming a bit of a policing system where, the slightest tug on a shirt is deemed a foul and is being overturned by VAR, which is ridiculous. And I understand all of the fans being grieved. Like basically answering your question, when's it gonna go? It's not. It's here to stay, and we're just gonna have to get used to it. And there'll be a lot of teething with it, and it's been here a couple of years now, and we're still struggling through. And I think in general, VAR is a good thing. I think it helps us get to the right decision more often than not, in times where they wouldn't have been able to get to the right decision beforehand, before it came in. However, and this may lead you nicely into your to your big hitting weekend, is actually, I think personally, the decision I would have been most aggrieved by in VAR this weekend was the decision in the Man U Arsenal game, and I think it was so soft to disallow the first goal from Martinelli by VAR that it's supposed to be clear and obvious mistakes that are overturned. If it's in the penalty box, at least, I don't know if this is how it bears in mind outside of the penalty box, but for me, when I looked at that, I was like, there's contact. Is it a foul?
no.
Yes. Is it a foul? Yes.
Okay.
Is it clear and obvious that it should be overturned by VAR? Not a chance. Like, not even close to clear and obvious. It's debatable. And if it's debatable, like in that sense, you should stick with the on-field decision. So for me, I think that's the problem, is the inconsistencies of how VAR's been handled in decisions like that, and it goes on to completely change the game.
Yeah, because there was another game, I don't know if it's this weekend or the previous weekend, where there was a similar type of contact tackle and it wasn't given and the goal stood.
It was the previous weekend.
So
Exactly.
there's just no consistency.
It's that inconsistency around it. And in them situations, VAR needs to make a decision on how it handles them and stick consistently. Because none of us have a problem with understanding that football is difficult and there's lots of factors at play. We just want the same factor to be at play this week as is at play next week. We don't want to come one week and have our goal disallowed for a shirt pull, and then the week after not have the goal disallowed for a shirt pull. And I think that is the big problem at this stage. And I think, for me, Arsenal looked really good and was 1-0 up, and then all of a sudden goal disallowed, game changed.
Yeah. I think the goal being allowed to stand would have definitely made a difference for the result. I think for me that the more, at the end of the day, Man United, well done. I got that one completely wrong. We were hoping to be the first team. You guys have an amazing statistic that you never lose when you're winning at halftime. Like no one's ever beat them. We were hoping to break that duck, and unfortunately, due to naivety in our play and us being a little bit too youthful in our approach to the second half, you got the win. Great goals. Well done, Fernandes. Very good pass, Ericsson. I liked what you guys did, and that's as much praise as I'm going to get. We outplayed you. We bopped you at your own ground. You guys were looking like scared little school children, like year 10 versus year 9. But the difference is year 9 has a fast striker, and you just pinged it long to get them in every time. But anyway, congratulations. Well done. I hope you're proud of yourselves. Now that Howard Webb's back, you might make top 4. You might.
He might win the league.
We hope not. You won't win the league, but you might make top 4, but we hope not. Anyway, that's enough talk about that stupid game. But yeah, like you said, I think that VAR definitely has made, they need to kind of simplify and make it better. I think just like the final point that we'll say before we wrap everything up, like for you, Matthew, what's one change you'd want to see implemented to VAR this weekend? Otherwise, we're allowed to head down to the referees' headquarters and peacefully protest.
There's 2 things that can be done. There is actually 2 things that could be done. Number one, going back to how what you said about the whole policing thing, looking for the little nitty little bits. Stop the micromanaging. Nobody likes it. Stop the micromanaging. That's not what it's there for. It just makes the game inconsistent. It makes it stop-start. It adds on minutes that don't even add on the end of the game, and it just ruins the flow of a really good game. If you look back, look at the Champions League final game when we played Man City in 2021, the game was allowed to flow because they stopped the nitty-gritty nonsense and the game was allowed to go. Both teams were competitive. Secondly, I think I'm taking an example from other sports. I think I might mention this before or somewhere in another capacity. I think a voiceover would help as well to put the fans at some kind of ease to know that they've been included in what's going on with decisions. I'll go back to other sports again. They do it in cricket. They do it in, especially in the 100 that's gone this summer. They've done it in tennis. They're doing tennis for years. American football. They do it in American football where a decision where you can see what they're going for, or especially in cricket, at least, they'll go and see what's going on and they see if it's out or not out. It's nice and clear. It's done very, very quickly. The game's allowed to flow on. In cricket, bear in mind, not football, even like Test cricket, which is like one of the slowest things in the world. The decisions are made up quite quickly, even when they do a review. So not only that, stop the micromanaging, put the fans at ease, and just speed up the whole process. Because it's a difference getting 4 minutes at a time to about 7. So just think, I get that you don't want to, certain fans, obviously with football is here at home and away, you want to try and keep the peace with mainly a home fan. But I think if you put them at peace and include them in the conversation as a whole, eventually it could work. Maybe try that at a smaller ground, I don't know. But I think if you keep them in and, see the referee may make a mistake and hold themselves accountable for it, they might feel a little bit better about it. So yeah, I think I'll do.
I agree with that one. I agree with that 100%. Like, cut out the nitty gritty details. Stop assessing whether there was a little tug on the shirt or a tiny clip on the ankle or whether his nipple was offside. Like, cut it out. Like, it's ridiculous. And mic the refs up and mic the people up in the VAR rooms and make them accountable.
Yeah.
Because that way we know what's going on. Like, and we know what got them from A to B in the decisions that they make. Whereas at the moment we know nothing, and it's ridiculous. Like, all of a sudden the ref sent to a screen, we don't know anything that's been said, anything that's led to that, and then he changes his decision. Like, 1 out of 100 times the referee is stuck with a decision when he's gone to the screen to see it, because even though there is apparently no bias, we do know that when the referees are sent to the screen, it's because they initially think they've made a mistake. So now they're looking for the mistake that they've made, and they're obviously going to find it more times than they don't. And if it was like, we just think you should review it, you still have the final call, you'd be looking at more of a kind of 50. 45, 60, 40 ratio on the changes. But the truth of the matter is that whenever a ref goes over to that screen, we know it's because they've made a mistake.
Yeah.
We know even if they've not made a mistake, they're going to change their mind.
Yeah.
So, like, there's got to be something done around that dynamic in which I think the best solution is that we get to hear what's going on and we get to hear the process and the journey that's got them from A to B. And it's accountability. Like Matthew said, they do it in other sports. I don't see why they can't do it in football.
Yep. You heard it here first. We want more accountability. Just like the mysterious people that are involved in that guy that died in that cell for that famous court case, we want answers. But that will be for a different podcast on another day. Another day. Anyway, that is it from us. Obviously, we have a new Prime Minister now. Congratulations with Liz Truss. Just a small job, just fix the country and everything. Don't screw up. Not too difficult. And we're going to talk about that on a different podcast another time. But nice to have you with us, Marcus. And as always, Matthew.
Pleasure.
Yes.
And thanks for listening. What are your thoughts on Thomas Tuchel's sacking? Let us know in the comments below. And if you have a different opinion on VAR, if you love it as it is, let us know as well. This is us from 8-7 for One Kick from Glory Podcast, signing out for another day. Have a good week.
Safe.